Hey guys, so like the title says, this is a video on my first time doing wood slab flattening. What I'm going to do is pretty much just go through some of the pitfalls that I had and some of the things that I found interesting. So let's get into it. I got everything flattened out to where it's all about the same level. So you can kind of see everything is pretty dang straight. So you can kind of see the horizon and it goes away at the same time. But it's got a really pretty good finish for what it is. I mean, I'm pretty new to slab, so I'm not too sure, but like these little areas are kind of rough. What I did is I was taking off 3/10 of an inch, or let's say 3/100 of an inch actually. Each pass, and then the last pass I took off just 1/100th. So maybe I just need to go even smoother, but it's not too bad. It seems pretty dang flat and seems to be pretty good. So the next steps is to flip it over. So this gives us the flat side to kind of work off of, and then we'll cut down. But I'm kind of worried about some of this other side. You can't really see it on that side, but I'm worried in some areas. This is still pretty dang thick, but look at some of the gaps that we're gonna have to cut up. So supposedly this was a 2-inch material when I bought it, and I've gone down, I believe, about 3/4 of an inch. Like, look at that. Like, that does not seem very thick. Like maybe 1.5 inches. So that's gonna be a ton compared to, I mean, this is touching somewhere. So I'll flip it over and see how bad it is, but this might end up being like, I don't know if it would be better to just cut it at a certain area so that I don't lose all the material down there. If I start seeing that, then that's probably what I'll do, so I can keep that thicker material for more opportunities, and then kind of cut it into, or leave it with the smaller section. Just kind of trying to be able to utilize the most material that I possibly can, so be judicious in that. So you can see me flipping over from one side to the next. I'm trapping the material in all of the 3 axes so that it doesn't move. And that way the material is nice and strong as we're going through. As you'll see me go on through the project, you'll see that it looks like I might be using a program to kind of clear everything off, but what I'm actually using is just a Xbox controller. It's mapped out the same way J Bates did it. Everything is, you know, moving, or up is Y plus, down is Y minus, right is Y or X plus, left is X minus. And then I've got different buttons to allow me to go either in the rapid movement or the normal movement. So that's a really good setup. One of the difficulties with that is that you have to be pretty careful that you don't move around the table, because you could cause problems, you know, getting confused. What is your X, what is your Y? All of a sudden, if you're looking from the side, your up would be X plus instead of Y plus, and then all of a sudden you're jogging in the wrong direction. Outside of that, the benefit of using the Xbox controller is that I don't have to spend as much time. Like a program would have a lot of wasted time going over areas that are lower, and so I can use the remote control to find the high spots and target those, and adjust my cutting height as I go through. So and then I can also dodge or be more cognizant of the clamps, and be careful with those. If you're not as experienced with the controller, I'd say try to give yourself a little bit more space away from the clamps, because sometimes you can actually skip and jump and hit them. I've destroyed a couple that way, so just be careful with it. So you'll see later, as this continues to go on, I'm really hesitant as I'm doing this because this is my first time flattening a slab, and so I'm really not taking off a lot of material. You'll start to see some burning, you can see some black as it's going through, and what's going on is I'm not, there's a couple of problems. My RPMs are too high, my speed is too low, or I'm not taking off enough material. The heat actually gets dissipated by the chips that you're making, and they get kind of taken away as it goes. So you can see that I'm making a lot of really fine dust, and that tells me that I'm not taking off enough. So you'll start to see some of the black there. So the fix is there. It's kind of a balance between the three. You can either reduce your RPMs, you can increase your inches per minute, which is your feed rate, or you can increase your depth of cut. I was only taking off, honestly, like 3/10 of, or 3/100 of an inch, which is not very much. Recently I've been doing some work for some people, flattening some slabs, and I've been experimenting as I've gone along, and I've actually started to take up to 1/10 and still moving at pretty much the same speed I'm here, so that's pretty much 3 times the amount, and getting a much better finish. Speaking of finish, I was in the section before, I was talking about how it's kind of rough. This is actually a up shear bit, and I accidentally bought this bit. I wanted to get just the normal bit, but this is the up shear bit, which actually causes that tearing out, and so I found a fix for that. So coming up real quick here, you're going to see it jump back, and what it's showing you is the dangers of using the remote when you're jogging really fast. So you'll see me move a little bit, and then all of a sudden I jerk to the left. Watch it as it kind of comes. So I'm going pretty slow, then I start going in the faster jog, and all of a sudden I jump over and hit. You can hear that thud, and it stops. And so what happens is I hit my limits. I went too far to the left and hit that limit, and so that's not a good thing. If I were to set this up again, I would have set it up more in the center of the table so that I have more movement freedom. And I would also, I kind of, as I'm moving faster in the other videos, I get really hesitant closer to the end of this table for that same reason. I don't want to hit those limits. So you got to be really careful and be mindful of where you're putting your the material or the piece that you're going to be working on, so that it gives you a little bit more degrees of freedom and buffer zone to work with. Same goes for any sort of clamping. If you can set those clamps as far away as possible but still have the strength, it'll really help you to not have to worry about that as you're working through. So here's what I've done. I've taken my micrometer and used the plunge feature. Probably should have done this on my stand. Anyway, plunge feature you can use to measure down. So I just measured down to see what it was, and it was 1.47 inches, about all the way through. There was one little section in here that was a little taller, and then this kind of dives down, and down at the smallest is just under an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take from right here, I'm going to cut it, and then that will be one other project, and that will be the rest. That way I get to save all of that material without having to cut it down even farther. Granted, based on some of the things I've talked to other people, more than 1 inch is pretty big for cutting boards and stuff like that, so I may end up cutting it down to that anyway, but at least this way I have more opportunity to kind of choose what I would like to do. Looking pretty cool though, comparatively to what it looked like before, and just cutting it, like it just, you know, wood sitting out in the elements gets kind of nasty. Cut it off, make it look really nice. So compared to what I bought, this looks like 10 times better. So I was a little worried, but again, just kind of learning this stuff, and so you can kind of grow with it. Same things I kind of learned with the boulders, that you splash water on them, you get to see the real color. When they're not wet, you don't really get to see the color. So in this shot, I am just cutting the two pieces apart. The farther part is going to be thinner, and then the closer part is thicker, again to keep the options open. Again, in this particular one, I was still really hesitant. I'm doing so many passes and I'm not really taking off a lot of material. With this particular end mill, with how thick it is, it's a 1/2 inch, I could be taking off way more than this. So just comes along with territory of understanding your machine, getting to know your machine, having more confidence, and what I would actually probably end up doing is switching to a smaller bit so that I'm not cutting up so much material, saving more length, and being able to use more of the material and then going faster. So some might take this to the chop saw, but since it's already locked down, I just switch out bits and cut it right there. This is pretty much what I did. You got to be really careful when you're doing this though, because this particular section is like super locked in place because you're pinned here, 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 and here, so you can't move this way and you can't really move that way, and then it's big enough to where there's nothing really going to push it this way. But this piece is only really pinned here, and oh, it's not even pinned over there either. I thought there was another one. It must have been this one. So this one's only pinned going this way, so it can move that way. So watch, I can shift it, So as I was going and this got to the end on that last pass, you could kind of start doing that. So you just got to move a little bit slower, and then got a little sacrificial piece of wood here so that I don't kill my clamp. But yeah, so now I've got this. I can pull that out and work with it in a different area. And I've got such a big enough area. I've got a big enough area to where I could actually just shift it over, lock it down, and keep this one in its place, and then just work on both pieces at the same time at different heights. Thanks guys for watching. I hope this was educational. First time that I was going through it, done quite a bit after and gotten a little bit better, but don't be afraid to kind of jump in, figure it out, and have a good time.